Happy third Thursday, everybody. I'm Lydia from NDPTC. Happy to welcome you all to our March 2023 edition. Today, we're super excited to have one of our instructors, Miss Allison Hardin, and our instructional designer, Melissa Blum, on to talk about our newly certified MGT-484 Nature-Based Solutions for Mitigating Hazards course. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Allison to get us started.
Found the button. Thank you very much. And first of all, I want to apologize. My voice will come and go a little bit. I'm getting over bronchitis. So thank you for being here, and hope that we can answer any of your questions that you have about the intro that we're giving you to the Nature-Based Solutions course. Anytime during this event. At any time, please raise your hand or just talk out your question. I can't see everyone on the screen, but I'll be happy to answer. If you raise your hand, it goes to the top. So the Nature-Based Solutions course, as Lydia said, is a recent class for NDPTC. It's created over the period of a little over a year, and it was recently approved by FEMA for delivery. It is a management level class. If you don't already know, NDPTC has typically 3 levels of classes. You have your awareness level, which is AWR classes, your management level, which is MGT, and then your performance level classes, which are PER. And this is a management level class. It does go less into the details of how to, say, lay the soil for your nature-based solutions, and more into why it's good for your community, how to fund it, how to use it in your planning practices, and how to use it for mitigation as well. So for the course basics for this, we'll talk about the format and the target audience, and we'll also talk about the course goal. If you're not familiar with nature-based solutions, we'll give a little bit of an overview about what they are and why they're important and what should students expect in this course, and then we'll have time for questions. So the course basics, it's delivered as a 4-hour course. So it's something that could be delivered on site in a morning or an afternoon. It could also be delivered online in a 4-hour format. It involves both lecture and activity, as our classes typically do. We really like to design them to have activities that folks can get their hands dirty in the class. Well, that might be a little bit of pun with nature-based solutions, but pardon me for that, but get hands into planning for these activities. The target audience are those professionals that are involved in selecting, planning, and implementing hazard mitigation strategies and projects at the local level, and that includes all types of folks. It includes your planners, as urban planners and rural planners. It includes emergency management folks, any of your government officials that might be involved or interested in it, like your budgeting department or your finance department, for the funding part. Engineers, transportation professionals in particular. There are been a lot of push in the last few years to try and get alternatives to concrete ditches alongside roads, and to help avoid flood damages along with that. Public utilities and public works, goes without saying. Floodplain managers for sure have been working with enhancing their plans with nature-based solutions for a very long time, but this will help out as well. And then non-government organizations with an interest in natural solutions to hazards. So other non-government organizations that have had information or have research or resources, like the Nature Conservancy has put information out. Some of the NGOs that are related to NOAA, we have the Urban Institute has discussed it, ASFPM, the Association of State Floodplain Managers, APA, the American Planning Association. All of these groups have interest or have put out information regarding nature-based solutions. So there's a lot of overlap in there, a big wide audience opportunity for this course. The course goal that's stated in the document is that the goal of this is to enable participants to leverage planning and implementation mechanisms to employ these nature-based solutions in their neighborhoods and in their communities to mitigate natural hazards. Now, I keep saying nature-based solutions, but some of you may have heard it called green infrastructure. Some of you may have heard it as natural infrastructure. Some of you may have heard discussions in other agencies where they talk about employing green infrastructure along with gray infrastructure, which means concrete. So making a sage infrastructure, since green and gray makes sage, putting that together. There's a lot of different discussions around this. Sometimes you talk about xeriscaping, which is landscaping that is meant to and for high heat or desert areas that doesn't need as much water, but natural and beneficial functions of the earth and the floodplains and the flora and fauna is essentially what goes into it. It's really special coming from Hawaii with this because Hawaii already has a lot of nature-based opportunities and solutions. And with nature-based solutions, when the conversation started many, many years ago, oftentimes it was discussed, well, we should probably look at indigenous populations and what they do and how they handle it. And that led into a lot of the discussions that became what it is today. But so nature-based solutions are sustainable planning, design, and environmental processes and engineering practices that weave natural features or processes into the built environment to promote adaptation and resilience. That's the definition from FEMA. But that also comes in different ways. It can be a coastal environment, it can be an inland environment, it could be low impact design, which is another term I forgot to mention, green-gray infrastructure, living shorelines, marsh migration areas, all those kinds of things. It's all based on what nature already has in place to help manage water and water resources in their area where they are. We discuss many different types and scales of nature-based solutions in this course. We talk about the regional and watershed scale, going down through the community scale or city scale, neighborhood scale, and then individual sites. We talk about those because each one of those is going to be different in the scale. Not every nature-based solution is going to be scalable from a large scale to a small scale, or vice versa. Not everyone is going to be able to be elevated to a regional scale from, say, a neighborhood scale. And then we also talk about coastal environments, because coastal environments are also have their own interesting and interchangeable, or not interchange, excuse me, interlocking areas with nature and nature-based solutions along with the water. So this is an example of one of the slides in the course and the different types of things that we talk about. Why is this important? It's been important for a long time, but it's even more so now because it aligns with the new FEMA guidance, building community resilience with nature-based solution. It aligns and complements other trainings like NOAA's nature-based solutions for coastal hazards. It aligns with some of the goals of the current administration as well, and it assists communities with ideas for grant proposals. One of the things that we talk about in the course is how a couple years ago FEMA put out a guidance document that said that if you are applying for a grant, whereas in a grant you have to get a benefit cost analysis, the money that you want for the grant has to be counted for, every penny that it's going to be doing that much value in your community. If you apply for $1,000 grant, you got to have $1,000 of return or more in a benefit cost scenario. If you have a grant program that you're applying with, nature-based services do not require any calculations for the value based on a benefit cost analysis. They are assumed to be valuable and worthwhile, and they accentuate and help your project down the road. So that's been very timely and very helpful as well. The course also addresses adaptations to climate change. This slide is started from one of our courses, the coastal climate, or excuse me, not coastal, but the climate adaptation course that NDPTC has. It's been very popular as of late. But there are benefits to stormwater management, to floodplain management, to heat adaptation, to local community areas, to local air quality. You've got carbon sequestration and benefits to local economies. These are all things that we look for when as a community leader. I recently retired as a planning director for a small community in South Carolina, and these are all things that we were looking for on a regular basis. How can we better attack the job that we have to do to maintain a safe and clean community, and what can we do with our natural environment, because there are benefits beyond the climate change adaptation, as well as the benefits to stormwater. There's even financial benefits. We have reports that show that there's 12 to 20% increase in retail sales on streets with trees than there are in areas where they don't have trees. So we look at a lot of different ways to explain this and talk to the students. So what can the students expect? So if you take this class, we'll be talking about different types of solutions. We'll also talk about barriers for implementation. Nature-based solutions is one of those courses or one of those topics where it's not one size fits all. What works at the coast won't work inland in areas. Currently, I'm working as an interim planning director for a county in the middle of South Carolina, and the things that I learned about what drains well in sandy soil at the beach is absolutely lost here with the red clay. Totally different environment. So there's not one thing that suits all types of environments or communities. So we talk about where those barriers are and how you can overcome those barriers. There's also barriers when you talk about, we talk about justice, environmental justice, and the like. We talk about how to implement a plan for nature-based solutions. We talk about scalability, like I said, and how it can be used in multiple divisions of your community. We talk about multiple object management, or MOM, where one program can achieve many different goals. For example, a park space could be a park space. It could also have trees that will help sequester some of the carbon dioxide. Those trees could also be thirsty trees on a riverbank that might help absorb floodplain floodwaters. The open space and storage of the park itself could be there for overflow of water-based areas, could also provide for recreational opportunities to create a more healthy community, and a healthier community is one that's quicker to respond when there's a call for evacuation or a call to action to protect themselves against what natural disaster is coming. So it's a lot of opportunities to put many different goals into a project once you can see how they're all linked. We also talk about funding mechanisms and options. We talk about bonds. We talk about local benefit areas. We talk about budgeting from your existing funding. We talk about grant opportunities and other resources. So we have a wide option there. And then we also talk about case studies or stories from the field and how that goes. So I was given 15 minutes. I think I went 16. But if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them or help out. Happy to chat. And thank you, David, for putting in the chat a link to the FEMA Risk Map Nature-Based Solutions Guide. That's wonderful. It gives everybody an opportunity to download that if they'd like. I'm open for questions.
Wow, Allison, that was really quick.
You told me 15 minutes. I took it to heart.
I did.
For those that don't know, I will talk your ear off about this stuff. And so I am trying very hard to keep within my time frame so that if you have questions, I'm happy to help.
Allison?
Yes.
I can't find my raised hand
Hi,
thing.
Mary
Sorry.
Sheridan. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you. I have a question because I took the demo, I took the course, and I got my certificate once it was approved now. But I'm wondering, did they make any changes to the handouts and to the big manual that goes with it?
I don't recall any big changes. Lydia, do you recall any big changes?
No, Melissa,
I do recall that they've reformatted the way things looked on the slide from one to the other, but I don't think the information changed.
Okay.
Melissa?
Are you referring to in general the course, the content and all that, or something specific?
The manual,
The student manual
the
or
student
the
manual.
slides?
Student guide.
in
Yeah,
any
I
of
mean,
the
so-
information.
Yeah, if you were at the demo, which is the first phase of us sort of rolling it out,
Mhm.
there probably are fairly significant changes until the final version, because the demo is sort of where we begin. It's this is what we think is a good course. What do you think? And then we take it back, and then we have another pilot, and then we take it back and make more adjustments, and then we send it for the final pilot and the FEMA review, and then we make more adjustments. So it is likely that you would want to look at a new copy of the certified materials.
Yeah,
I
so
would
would there be a way for me to log in and download the new copy?
So Mary, we'll be sending out the certified participant guide to all the participants who took one of the demo courses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Great,
think you'll
thank you.
find, I think you'll find that there's a lot more emphasis on the funding piece of it. So how to, what kind of funding are available, how to implement it, how to sort of write it into some of your other plans, your mitigation plans, et cetera. And then a lot of case studies. So we really tried to kind of draw out the case studies that we were talking about in the original version, and sort of plug them into the different, topics that we were discussing throughout, some barriers and the planning mechanisms and how these people got the funding and what did they do with it, and what were they up against. So I think that's where we really changed it from the first to the last version.
So I stand
Thank you.
corrected. Thank you, Melissa. And Mary, you can always sign up to take it again.
Oh, that's an idea. Thank you.
Eric, you have your hand raised.
It's Carl. Actually, it's me. It's Carl.
Carl, oh my. Hi, boss.
Yeah, I'm from California. Great presentation, Allison. I can listen
Thank
to
you.
your voice all day long. You have such a nice, pleasing sounding
Thank you.
voice. And so my question is, looking at the different cases and the reactions that you've gotten from, the people that we're training, can you tell us a little bit about some of the differences in the environments? You were talking about the differences in South Carolina, but
Right.
what about in other parts of the country, and how do we accommodate that in a topic? Is there some content that's readily transferable where other content is much more specific to the context? Can you respond to that?
I'll do my best. So the pilots that I was involved with, both were online, and one was in Florida, in the Miami area. Some of the challenges we talked about in the Miami area were where do you put green infrastructure when your environment is pretty much built out? We talked about the impacts of seawater and salt to green infrastructure. And we talked a little bit about how the difference being that coastal infrastructure needs to be considered for coastal areas because it has those challenges that doesn't necessarily filter out into the interior of the state as much. When I've talked about this topic with other floodplain managers and planners throughout the country, oftentimes we get that same conversation about built environments, like, well, I've got my community's pretty tight. My city is very urban. Where am I going to put it? And we have to have opportunities for them to look at other places that have done it and led the way, like Philadelphia and in Pennsylvania, and their green infrastructure. We also look for alternative green infrastructure options to point out in dry heat climates. And then we look for the ones that will help along with transportation interest. Transportation flooding is a big deal, big issue, especially in some of the older communities, because the streets and the highways were built in times where road elevations weren't really considered. They didn't consider people might want to drive through the road after a storm in the 50s because people weren't really going out to disaster tourism in that time frame, but living in the beach where I am, I know that people will drive out when there's water on the road. They'll drive out when there's sand on the road, and if you can't keep them off the road, the better thing to do is to redesign and get around your the next time you upgrade that road, upgrade it to where it's more resilient from those storms. And the low impact design does help with that. Gives you opportunities also to showcase the natural flora and fauna of your community. One of the things about natural and beneficial functions is you don't want to bring in a non-native species into your area just because it's something that absorbs a lot of water and you want to put it on your riverbank. You want to use the species that are native to your area to help encourage that regrowth and repopulation, to let it do what it has been doing for centuries, or what it did before we as humans came in and moved it around a bit. We taught a class for climate in Columbus, Ohio recently, and one of the notes that came out about how climate is impacting Ohio is that the buckeye tree, which is the state's tree and the state symbol, is migrating north into Michigan. So the Buckeyes are officially moving into Michigan, which is a very difficult thing to talk about if you're a sports fan.
Right.
And I am just barely a sports fan. I know the ball goes from one place to the next, but from what I understand, Ohio and Michigan do not get along when it comes to sports. So for their tree to be migrating north because of the warming trend that's going on in Ohio is something that has been discussed. And so that the materials they're using for landscaping and for natural-based solutions in Ohio have to adjust as well.
Yeah, what a great response. I want to take the course again too. And part of it is whether we will need to add additional cases, based upon the experiences that we have delivering the training as well too. So I look forward to seeing it.
Good. And the good thing is that because this is a emerging topic, that it's like every other month or so, I find a new community that has a plan in place, or I find something that has come across the wire as an example of ways to help mitigate climate adaptation, or help with mitigation and climate adaptation that's nature-based. So I'm adding to the list and adding to my resources as hard and fast as I can go. And so when we're ready to go forward with any updates, we'll have some history on that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
And of course, you got a great staff to help write it. Melissa did a fantastic job.
Your $10 will be Venmo'd shortly.
$10. I'm ready if anybody else has any questions. Didn't know if the chat, how do I get the registration code? Lydia has a wonderful opportunity to put a link in the chat for pre-conference training. And how do you get the registration code? Thank you too, Landon. It's good to see you here. Yes, we will be offering it at the Primo conference. I'll be there. Oh, Michigan. Thank you for being here. But I'll be there. We'll have it on Monday from 8 to noon. And we'll be having it in person there. So feel free to register for that if you're attending the Primo conference. If you're not attending the Primo conference, but you have other conferences that need training opportunities, Lydia and the staff will be happy to help you out and find where we can send the course to you next, especially now that we have an official number on it that FEMA has given it to us. That means that we can go forward and create those continuing education credits and opportunities for discussion. Especially if you have a community where you can hold it in your community and bring these folks to the table, where you can bring stormwater and public works and planners and floodplain managers in that community together to talk about this problem. Together, we can do a lot of good hand-holding and facilitation in these discussions. Ah, Lilian, gracias.
So anyone have any other questions, feel free to unmute or type your questions into the chat. Seeing none, if you have a question, just flag me
Sure.
if I don't see. But seeing none, this concludes our virtual third Thursday. If you think of a question later, you can reply to the email that we send out with the video link and the chat transcript. You can always reach us there, or I dropped our operations staff email list into the chat as well. You can feel free to copy that down if you think of a question later that shucks you should have asked.
Aloha.
And thank
And
you
aloha.
all for joining us. Have a good rest of your day.
Absolutely.